Hey, good morning. Today is Thursday, December 19th, 2024. It's 9:08 a.m. Been on the road about 3 hours now. On my way to Becky's house, Oxford, North Carolina. ETA 3:18 p.m. I'll probably get there about between 4 and 5, depending on how many more stops I have. 6 hours. 406 miles left. So I've been listening to We Who Wrestle with God, the book by Jordan Peterson, about the last hour and a half. And I just am in chapter 2.5, just finished that, getting ready to go to 2.6. And this is where he talks about the fall. And I just listened to him go through and identify pride and arrogance as the weakness that was displayed by Adam and Eve in the fall. This next chapter now is about, it looks like, or maybe I just finished that one, talking about the serpent. And I want to hear what he has to say about that. But as I'm listening to this, I'm working on a strategy for how to communicate this in my book, We Who Wrestle with Principalities. And one thought I've had is listening to Christopher Langan on the cognitive theoretic model of the universe, the CTMU, and Jordan Peterson and his basically his psychological, what do I want to say? What is he doing to the Bible? He's psychoanalyzing the Bible, which basically I think emphasizes the humanity and de-emphasizes any divine element in reality. In other words, it's a tacit, it's a subtle. But I think, and I could be wrong on this, but this is my take so far. I'll need to listen to it again, read it, and get some summaries of this to see if my take is correct. But he, in his psychoanalysis of these events from the human perspective, he invokes the divine, saying that ideas, for example, that are shared among humans are living, that they have a living, like they're alive in some sense. And I think this is the very interesting, because it pays homage to the value of the scripture as a source of information that is useful for humanity, no question. And it is this utility for humanity that Jordan Peterson sees and wants to highlight, but he does so from a strictly humanistic point of view. And when it sounds like he's talking toward a divine reference, he's now mentioned in 2 or 3 places the divine Father, the divine Mother, and the divine Son. So he's taking this grand metaphor, if you will, of Father, Mother, and Son, which is an ostensibly Catholic view, which is a pagan view of the of what the Scripture is putting forth. It's a pagan in the sense that Mary is not divine, and Jesus and the Father are one. They're one. The significance of the Trinity is overshadowed by that. But you lose any kind of connection to a divine inspiration of Scripture with all of the words of the biblical corpus, which is repeated multiple times, and the other layer of linguistic gymnastics that are put forth, which I appreciate, I understand, but I also see that as a weakness, because sometimes, whereas detail is meant to provide clarity, too much detail can create obfuscation, and to where you need to zoom out so you can, see the forest for the trees, and that's I think what I perceive is going on. There are many themes and branches in this discussion so far by Dr. Peterson. There are branches, there are themes, and I guess I want to do a higher level analysis of this to see how well these themes are carried throughout the work, and if there is a thematic ascension and building of multiple themes simultaneously, or just where this is going to land and what the conclusion is. Similarly with the CTMU, which I think would be potentially maybe not necessarily attracted to the same audience, but could be consumed by the same audience. The CTMU, as I said before, the original work in I think 2002 to describe this is, I want to say, it's probably functional. It probably does what he says it does. I don't see anything. It sounds convincing. I haven't done the research. I don't have the scholarly background to immediately have a knee-jerk response based on the authors and the other scientists that he cites in his analysis of things. But I do have the capacity to think about what he's talking about. And from a bigger picture standpoint, I think there's a fundamental issue that both of these scholars, these giants of thinking in humanity, miss. And is that hubris on my part? Yeah, maybe, I don't know, but it's what I see. And that is the fact that from my observation, when I say fact, I'm referring to a observation that I've seen made or have heard of and have appropriated into my subjective threshold of validation, meaning it makes sense to me, and so it adds to my conviction level. And that is, I think that it's preposterous to assume that as human beings, with our discernible limitations, that we have the capacity in any way, shape, or form to derive or define something that we would be able to call a theory of everything, or label anything, any observation, any we'll just call it observation, any piece of knowledge as absolute truth. I don't think that we have the absolute point of reference necessary to say, we don't have the point of reference. It doesn't have to be absolute. We just don't have a point of reference so we can look at it objectively. We have no capacity for objective reflection. There is no objective reflection. Everything that we see, everything that we experience, everything that we observe, discuss, contemplate is based on our subjective reception of information. It's information that we receive, therefore it's subjective. It comes through our eyes, ears, our sense of touch, our feelings, our emotions. All of these sensory input avenues we have as human beings, that's all that we have. And including whatever quote-unquote spiritual sensitivities we might have. And that's where it gets interesting, because I do believe that we are spirit beings, and as such, there is this unseen realm, as Dr. Heiser would call it, that is very much a part of our existence, that is, by definition, unseen, and yet we are a part of that realm. So our experience in this is always and only going to be subjective when it comes to our attempt to explain what happens. For example, I have an experience. Let's say I'm telling you about an experience I had where I was captured by these beings, and they took me to a spaceship and they did tests on me, and then brought me back to my home. Now, that individual that is sharing that, they are sharing that based on, for some reason. And so now we have motive. Is it true? Is it made up? Because we as humans have the ability to do that. Is it a true reflection of what they experienced? Now, that very well may be the case, and there are many documented cases of these types of experiences by medical professionals, but that still doesn't give us any degree of understanding or certainty with regard to the validity of those experiences with, it doesn't prove that there's aliens, so to speak. So, I'm here at the rest stop now, and let's see if I can remember where I was at. I was just talking about, humans don't have the capacity to determine anything in or state that anything is absolute truth, and that to try to put these things together, as these two gentlemen are doing, is a flawed exercise from the start. All right, let's see if I can pick up from there when I get back.